I've noticed we're losing subscribers. Not the YouTube kind, but the kind that swore they'd be in my life forever. Funny how that works. One day you're surrounded by people who claim to love you, and the next, you're watching them walk away like you were just another phase in their lives. By the way, if you're here, do me a favor, subscribe. It's free, and unlike some people in my life, you won't regret sticking around. I built a life with a woman I thought I knew. I built a business, a future, a home. And then, one day I realized she was building something else, behind my back with someone else. Let me take you back to where it all started. Jen and I met in college. She was stunning, bright-eyed, full of energy, and at the time, seemingly supportive of my dreams. I was grinding my way through a business degree while she studied education. We clicked instantly. She wasn't just another party girl looking for a good time. She was ambitious, or so I thought. After graduation, I went all in on starting my own consulting firm. Those first few years were brutal. 80-hour weeks. Sleepless nights. Barely scraping by. But Jen? She was right there with me. She'd show up at 2 a.m. with energy drinks, give me pep talks when clients ignored me, even offered to put her teaching career on hold to help me build something great. I thought it was the most selfless thing I'd ever seen. Looking back now, I see it for what it was, a warning sign. Fast forward a few years and my business was thriving. We moved into a beautiful home in a great neighborhood. That's when Jen found her new obsession, the church. At first it seemed harmless. She got involved in women's groups, organized charity events, posted Bible verses all over her social media. She became this walking advertisement for faith, marriage, and traditional values. But as time went on, I started noticing changes. She stopped asking about my day. Conversations that once flowed effortlessly turned robotic, like she was just checking boxes. If I asked something as simple as, "How was Bible study?" I'd get vague, clipped responses. Then, out of nowhere, she started taking a sudden, intense interest in our finances. She wanted to know how much money I was making, what assets we had, what my business was worth. At first, I thought maybe she just wanted to be more involved. Then I caught her taking pictures of my financial statements. One night, I woke up to find her in my office, sifting through my files. "Just organizing," she said, even though I saw her scanning documents on her phone. Then came the late nights, the weekend retreats, the missing details in her stories. She'd leave the house in one outfit and return in another. "Oh, I spilled something," she'd say. She suddenly became extra protective of her phone. Bought new lingerie, but I never saw her wear it. One night she came home late. Her makeup was smudged. Her hair was messy. And there was a scent on her, something sharp like cologne. Long night. I asked, watching her carefully. "Yeah, Bible study ran late." Then we grabbed dinner. Except Bible study had always ended at 8 p.m. And now, suddenly she was rolling in past midnight. "Smells like someone spilled cologne on you," I commented. Her body tensed. Then she scoffed, crossed her arms, and said, "Oh, so now you pay attention? Maybe if you weren't always at the office, you'd know what's going on in my life." That wasn't an answer. That was deflection. I could have confronted her then, but I knew how this would go. She twisted. "Cry. Make it my fault." No. I needed proof. So I got smart. I started tracking her credit card statements. Checked her location history on her iPad. Pro tip: they never log out. And there it was. Every Tuesday and Thursday she was spending 2 to 3 hours at the same apartment complex. So, on a Thursday I left work early. Parked across the street. Waited. At exactly 2 p.m. Jen's car pulled in. 10 minutes later, another car parked beside her. Tall guy. Gym bro type. Tribal tattoo. A walking cliché. I watched as they walked into the building together, all touchy-feely, giggling like teenagers. And as I sat there, gripping my steering wheel, I realized, my wife, the woman I had built my world around, was walking into another man's apartment with the same excitement she used to have for me. And that's when I knew. This wasn't going to end the way she thought it would. Revenge isn't loud. It isn't reckless. It's not an impulsive outburst of anger. No. Revenge is quiet. Calculated. And I had all the time in the world to make it count. I sat in my car across the street, watching as my wife, Jen, walked into another man's apartment like she belonged there. I had already taken pictures when they kissed in the parking lot, completely oblivious to the fact that I was watching. Something inside me shut off in that moment. No more doubts. No more pretending. The woman I loved was gone. His name was Eric. I found out when Jen left her phone unattended to take a shower one night. A few swipes and there it was, text after text, message after message. He wasn't just some random fling. He worked at her church. A youth pastor. The irony was almost too much. But I didn't confront her, not yet. Instead, I gathered more proof. Screenshots of texts. Photos of them together. Receipts for hotels. I even recorded a phone call where she whispered to him that she was going to leave me soon and that they would finally be together. But the worst part? It wasn't just the betrayal. It wasn't even the affair itself. It was discovering that she had been planning this for months. Scrolling through her messages made me sick. This wasn't some emotional lapse, a moment of weakness. No, this was calculated. Cold. I'm waiting for the right moment. He's too busy with work to notice anything. Once I file, I'll push for alimony. He won't see it coming. She wasn't just cheating, she was using me, bleeding me dry, setting herself up for a cushy exit while laughing with Eric about how easy it would be. That's when I made a decision. She wasn't walking away from this with a dime. The plan. First, I met with my business accountant. Kept it casual, just some restructuring for financial efficiency. Over the next few weeks, I made strategic moves, prepaying my office lease for a year, paying down debts early, shifting my salary into the company to show lower personal income. On paper, I wasn't drowning, but I wasn't rich either. At the same time, I opened a second personal account with another bank. I didn't hide money, I just made sure there was a cushion she'd never have access to. And then she made her biggest mistake. The bomb drops. It was a random Tuesday when she finally pulled the trigger. I walked through the front door, and there she was, sitting on the couch with a smug, almost triumphant look on her face. "Mike," she said sweetly, "we need to talk." I already knew what was coming, but I played dumb. "What's up?" She inhaled dramatically. "I'm pregnant." Silence. Then she twisted the knife. "It's not yours." She said it casually. Cold. Like she was ordering a damn coffee. "I've been seeing someone else. I want a divorce." 5 years of marriage tossed away like garbage. I could feel the heat rising in my chest. Every instinct screamed at me to unload everything, to throw the evidence in her face, to call her every name in the book. But then something clicked. This was perfect. She thought she had the upper hand. She thought she was in control. So I leaned back on the couch and smirked. She hesitated. She was expecting an explosion, rage, tears, something. But I just sat there silent. That made her nervous. So she doubled down. "And just so you know, you'll still be paying me alimony. I gave up my career for you. You owe me." That's when I finally spoke. "Jen," I said, locking eyes with her, "did you really think I wouldn't know about Eric?" Her entire face drained of color. I laughed. "Tuesdays and Thursdays, right? 2 to 3 hours. Same apartment complex, same parking spot. You didn't even try to mix it up. You really thought I was that stupid?" She stiffened. I don't know what you're talking about." I stretched my arms across the back of the couch, relaxed. "Come on, Jen. Bible study runs late? That must be one hell of a lesson plan if it requires lingerie in a hotel room." Panic flashed in her eyes. "And Eric, real winner you picked there. Youth pastor, huh? Wonder how his congregation would feel about him knocking up a married woman while preaching family values." Her breathing became shallow. She looked around like she was searching for an escape. "How long were you going to play this game, Jen?" I tilted my head. "You and your little boyfriend were waiting for the right moment, huh? Planning to milk me dry before running off together. What was it you said? He won't see it coming?" Her mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. I stood up slowly, towering over her. "Let me make something clear." I stood over her, voice steady. "Let me make something very clear. You are not walking away from this as the winner. You are not taking a damn thing from me that I don't let you have." She blinked rapidly, then straightened her back, masking her panic with fake confidence. "It's the law, Mike. You can fight it all you want, but you'll lose." I gave her the smuggest smile of my life. "If you say so." She thought she had me. She thought she had won. Meanwhile, I was already 5 steps ahead. The divorce begins. Jen wasted no time. She moved out almost immediately, straight into Eric's place. A few days later, she filed for divorce. Irreconcilable differences. Fancy legalese for, "I want to screw other men without feeling guilty about it." I met with several lawyers. The first 3 gave me the same story: "You're screwed. It's a no-fault divorce state. The court doesn't care about cheating." But I didn't stop until I found the right one. Let's call him Paul. Paul was blunt. "Look, man, you're probably going to have to pay her something. But we can minimize the damage." I slid my financial statements across the table. He raised an eyebrow. "Interesting timing on these business expenses." I just gave him a knowing look. He smirked. He couldn't advise me to hide assets. But he also wasn't stupid. This might help reduce the alimony calculation somewhat, he admitted. But in this state you're still looking at significant payments. That's when I realized. The courts might not care about her cheating. But her church would. Court day. I walked into court wearing my sharpest suit. Jen arrived with her expensive lawyer, dressed modestly, as if she were auditioning for Sister Wives. Her lawyer started first. Your Honor, my client gave up a promising career to support her husband. She maintained their home while he built his business. She deserves compensation for her sacrifices. Sacrifices? My lawyer stood. Your Honor, we have evidence that Mrs. Walker engaged in an extramarital affair, resulting in pregnancy. She is currently living with her affair partner. Jen's lawyer smirked. Your Honor, let's not forget, this is a no-fault state. Marital misconduct is irrelevant when determining spousal support. Hearing them brush off her betrayal like it was nothing made my blood boil. She cheated. She lied. She got pregnant with another man's child. And I was supposed to pay for that? My lawyer pushed back, but the judge was unimpressed. When he finally spoke, I knew I was about to get screwed. While the court acknowledges Mr. Walker's concerns regarding his wife's infidelity, the law in this state is clear. Spousal misconduct is not a factor in determining alimony. Jen smirked across the courtroom. Given Mrs. Walker's financial dependence during the marriage and her current unemployment, the court finds that she is entitled to spousal support. I braced myself. Mr. Walker will pay $4,500 per month for a period of 4 years, or until Mrs. Walker remarries. $4,500. Every month. For 4 years. To the woman who cheated on me while carrying another man's baby. It felt like a punch to the gut. But then I reminded myself, this was already part of my plan. Thanks to my financial restructuring, I had managed to reduce what I would have owed. If I hadn't moved my money around, that number would have been closer to $6,000 a month. Jen had no idea about the money I still had tucked away. Or that my business would miraculously recover once this was over. Outside the courtroom, Jen strolled past me, smug as ever. Told you, she whispered. Should have just agreed to my terms from the beginning. Then right in front of me she called Eric. Baby, it's done. We won. She giggled like a teenager. He has to pay. I told you the judge wouldn't care. I said nothing. Just watched her walk away thinking she had won. She had no idea the game was just beginning. The next move. I paid the first alimony check on time. No complaints. No anger. Just a polite email. Payment sent. Please confirm receipt. Jen seemed surprised. She had expected me to be bitter. To fight. To give her more ammunition. Instead, I played the ideal ex-husband. Polite, timely, aloof. She had no idea what was coming. See, Jen wasn't just any churchgoer. She was Harvest Community Church's poster child. She led the women's ministry. She organized marriage retreats. She stood on stage during services, preaching about family values. And that was her biggest weakness. Jen had always preached about God's plan for holy matrimony. Her father was a deacon. Her mother ran Sunday school. Her entire family portrayed the perfect Christian image. And I knew, the moment they discovered the truth, they'd throw her under the bus without hesitation. The package that changed everything. I had everything. DNA test results proving the baby wasn't mine. Time-stamped photos of her and Eric. Screenshots of their explicit texts. Hotel receipts. Even a video of her mocking her church friends for being uptight prudes. That last one? Especially juicy. I compiled it all into a neat, professional folder and attached a very polite cover letter. To the elders at Harvest Community Church, I regret bringing this to your attention, but as a fellow Christian, I believe it is my responsibility. My ex-wife, Jennifer Walker, who oversees multiple ministries in your church, has been engaging in behavior that directly defies your church's principles. I have provided documentation of her infidelity, which began during our marriage and resulted in a pregnancy that is not mine, as proven by DNA testing. Jennifer is now living with this man and receiving considerable alimony from me. I share this not out of spite, but out of concern for the integrity of your ministry. Respectfully, Michael Walker. I dropped the box off early Sunday morning, when no one was there. Then I went home and waited. Sunday service, and the firestorm begins. The Sunday after I sent my little care package, my phone exploded with texts. Church friend, dude, W did you do? Another, pastor just called an emergency elder meeting before service. Jen is losing it. I simply turned off my phone and went back to sleep. Later that afternoon, I received a voicemail from Jen. I pressed play and immediately had to hold the phone away from my ear. "You absolute piece of, how could you do this to me? They kicked me out of the women's ministry. My dad won't even look at me. You ruined everything." I deleted it. I didn't need that negativity in my life. The church turns its back. Over the next week, I heard from mutual friends that Jen was spiraling. Her church friends ignored her. Her parents were praying about the matter, aka they were disgusted. The Christian school where she volunteered begged her not to return. Even Eric was getting cold feet. Turns out he didn't sign up for this much drama. He thought he was getting a godly woman and a solid alimony payment. Instead, he got a social outcast, a baby on the way, and a whole lot of baggage. By Friday, he had kicked her out of his apartment. So much for pure love, huh? The church's final blow. 1 week after I sent my evidence, Jen called me. She was sobbing. "Mike, please, they're going to publicly discipline me." I smirked. "Do you know what that means?" "They'll announce it to the entire congregation. Everyone will know." "They already know, Jen," I said flatly. "That's kind of how church gossip works. My dad might lose his position over this. My family has been at Harvest for 3 generations. I shrugged. "Should have thought about that before you ed the youth pastor." She fell silent. Then, in a tiny voice, He's not talking to me anymore." I laughed. "Oh, your dad?" "No. Eric." Oh, this was too good. "So, your soulmate bailed the second things got tough?" Shocking. "I have nowhere to go, Mike," she wailed. "My parents won't let me stay with them. None of my friends will return my calls." "Sounds like a you problem. Can I come home? Just until I figure things out?" This woman had an unreal amount of nerve. "It's not your home anymore, Jen. You gave that up when you decided to cheat." She sobbed. "What am I supposed to do?" "Get a hotel. You've got alimony money coming in. Figure it out." Then I hung up. Cool. Maybe. But after everything she'd done, I didn't have an ounce of sympathy left. The final collapse. The very next morning, news of Jen's disciplinary hearing spread through the neighborhood. By that afternoon, she was officially labeled an adulteress. She was banned from all church leadership roles. Her father stepped down as deacon. Her sister postponed her wedding. The entire family was in exile. And Eric? He had already requested a transfer to another church in another state, leaving Jen pregnant and alone. I didn't have to lift a finger. Her own community had done all the heavy lifting for me. Then it got worse for her. The private Christian school where she worked part-time had budget cuts. Guess whose position got eliminated? The pregnancy center where she volunteered? They kindly suggested she step away. The charity organization she worked with? Restructuring volunteer roles. One by one, every part of her identity was stripped away. Meanwhile, I just kept paying the alimony checks, on time. Rock bottom. 3 weeks after the church scandal, I got a text from an old neighbor. "Jen's living in her car in the Walmart parking lot." I didn't respond. But that night I drove past. Sure enough, there she was. Sitting in the driver's seat of her old Honda, her phone screen dimly lighting her miserable face. The next day she called me. This time there was no screaming. Her voice was flat. "I lost my job. That sucks. The baby's due in 5 months. No one will hire me. My parents still won't talk to me." I said nothing. After a pause, she admitted, "I've been sleeping in my car." Sounds like poor financial planning. She exhaled sharply. "Is this what you wanted? To see me completely destroyed?" I thought about it. "You know what? Yeah, pretty much." Her breath hitched. "I was stupid. I made a mistake. I never meant to hurt you." I shut her down. "I don't care." A long silence. Then finally, I just wanted to say I'm sorry." I smirked. "Cool. Good luck with your new life." And that's when I decided it was time to play my last card. "Actually," I added casually, "I might have a solution that works for both of us." Jen perked up. "What kind of solution?" "I'm getting tired of writing these monthly checks," I mused. "And my business is expanding. I'm looking at opening an office in Singapore. Might move there for a while." "What does that have to do with me?" "Well," I said slowly, "international alimony enforcement is complicated." And then I waited, letting it sink in. I might have grounds to challenge the alimony settlement based on some creative interpretations of the law. Of course, that was complete nonsense, But Jen wasn't in a position to question me. "What are you saying?" she asked, her voice laced with panic. "I'd like to buy you out," I said smoothly. "One lump sum payment instead of monthly alimony for the next 4 years." She hesitated, probably weighing her non-existent options. "How much?" "90,000. Tax-free. You sign a document releasing me from all future obligations, and the money's yours today." Jen had no idea I could afford that. She and her lawyer never figured out just how much I'd shielded from the divorce. To her, $90,000 must have seemed like a lifeline. In reality, it was less than half of what she'd get over the full alimony period. But for someone living in their car, pregnant, broke, and abandoned, it probably felt like winning the lottery. I don't know," my lawyer said. "Your lawyer isn't sleeping in a Walmart parking lot," I interrupted. "And this offer expires in 24 hours. After that, I challenge the ruling, and you get nothing while we fight it out in court for a year or two." Silence. I could almost hear the gears turning in her head. "Can I think about it?" "Sure. Until this time tomorrow." Then I moved forward with the challenge. I hung up. She called back 2 hours later. "I'll take it," she whispered. "Smart choice. Be at my lawyer's office at 9 a.m. Mike." Her voice was small. "Thank you." I almost laughed. "Don't thank me, Jen. This isn't mercy, it's business." The next morning she showed up looking like absolute hell. Dark circles under her eyes, unkempt hair, wearing the same clothes I'd seen through her car window. My lawyer had everything ready. A full release of all future alimony obligations in exchange for the lump sum. The cashier's check sat on the table. Jen barely glanced at the paperwork before signing. When my lawyer slid the check toward her, her hands trembled as she took it. "So, that's it?" she asked. "We're done?" I nodded. "Completely done. I don't ever want to hear from you again." She looked like she wanted to say something but just nodded and walked out. As the door shut behind her, my lawyer shook his head. "Most guys in your position wouldn't have offered her anything." I shrugged. It was worth 90 grand to be rid of her forever. The monthly payments never hurt me financially, but they were a constant reminder of how she had screwed me over. Now I was completely free. No obligations. No lingering ties. I could move forward while she was on her own. And I knew Jen. She'd burned through that money in months. No alimony. No job prospects. No backup plan. Meanwhile, I was building my empire, living my best life, and never looking back. Epilogue. 6 months later, I ran into her at a gas station. Total coincidence. She looked rough, still pregnant or maybe pregnant again, I didn't ask, driving a beat-up old Civic. When she spotted me fueling up my new BMW, she froze. I gave her a nod just to be polite. Hesitantly, she walked over. "How are you?" she asked awkwardly. I shrugged. "Business is good. Life is good." She nodded, staring at the ground. That's good." Awkward silence. Then she finally blurted out, "The money's gone." I didn't respond. Not my problem. I know. I don't even know why I'm telling you this. I finished pumping my gas. "Well, good luck with everything." I turned to leave, but she spoke again. "I'm sorry, Mike. For everything. I really am." I studied her for a long moment. Was it satisfying to see her like this? Honestly, not as much as I'd expected. But I didn't feel bad for her either. Too little, too late, Jen. Then I got in my car and drove away. Haven't seen her since. Final thoughts. As for me, life's never been better. My business is thriving, I'm in a solid relationship with a woman who actually has her life together, and I'm finally doing things I never had time for before. I got my pilot's license, took up mountain biking, and even started learning guitar. Meanwhile, Jen's predictable downfall played out exactly as I expected. Turns out she had hidden massive credit card debt. The $90,000 was gone in 4 months, spent on rent, food, and trying to maintain a lifestyle she couldn't afford. She had the baby, a boy. Eric, the soulmate, turned out to be a deadbeat dad who barely pays child support. He moved to Ohio, has almost no contact with the kid, and shocker, his calling to youth ministry apparently didn't extend to his own child. Jen tried to go back to teaching, but her reputation followed her. The Christian schools wouldn't take her, and the public schools wanted more experience. Last I heard, she was working at a call center, barely making above minimum wage. Her family? Her parents eventually forgave her, after 8 months of avoiding her. They help with the baby but constantly remind her of her bad choices. Her sister keeps her distance, probably afraid Jen's reputation will hurt her own standing in the church. Speaking of church, Jen tried to rejoin the community. It didn't go well. She's allowed to attend services, but she's permanently banned from leadership roles. No more women's ministry. No more marriage retreats. No more influence. She sits in the back and leaves immediately after the service ends. A mutual friend told me she's been saying she made a mistake and should have worked on her marriage. Too late. As for me, I don't think about her much anymore. I have better things to focus on. And if there's one lesson I learned from all of this, it's this. Sometimes, the worst thing that happens to you is the best thing that could have ever happened. You just have to be willing to burn the bridges that need to be burned, and never look back. That's it. I won't be posting any more updates because frankly, I've moved on. But if you're going through something similar, here's my final piece of advice. Record everything. Save screenshots. Gather evidence. You never know when you might need it. This story is a powerful reminder that sometimes the worst experiences in life can lead to the best outcomes, if you're willing to walk away from toxicity and focus on building something better. It's about knowing your worth, making smart decisions, and never letting someone else's mistakes define your future. If this story resonates with you, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you been through something similar? What lessons did you take from it? Share your experiences in the comments and let's start a conversation. Don't forget to like, share, and comment if this story spoke to you. Your support helps bring more real-life lessons to others who might need them.